But today, we want to focus on traditionalism because traditionalism has regained traction and significance for many people, and those both in the academy and in the lay world have taken a new interest in traditionalism as it has over the last few years grown in momentum. Now some people are interested in traditionalism to scorn and mock it, and others are interested in traditionalism because they see it as an antidote to the malaise of our current society. On the internet in particular, there are many various so-called schools of traditionalism offering up interpretations for their readers and for their listeners. And I just want to provide what I would consider the general core to traditionalist philosophy that would unite all of the various schools of traditionalism, whether it's Christian or so-called neo-pagan or just a general intellectual traditionalism. So to begin, I would say that the first principle of traditionalism is that man is a spiritual animal. That is, man is made in the image of God and instinctively burns after a greater power than himself and seeks to worship. Now, worship, of course, is an important aspect of man as a spiritual animal. The Latin word cultus is our word for culture, and cultus in Latin means praise and care. What you praise and what you care about is ultimately the thing that you would worship. Furthermore, there is no distinction between the private and the public, especially with regards to religion. That is, for the traditionalist, religion has an integral role to play in societal life. Moreover, man is also a social, communitarian, and historical animal. That man is social means he is not intrinsically asocial, as the modern philosophers asserted. That man is communitarian logically follows from his social nature. Man seeks community as part of the good life instead of seeking loneliness or atomization, as the modern philosophers also asserted. That man is historical means that man has a formed particularity to him. He is born to particular parents, to a particular place, to a particular people, with a particular history and culture that informs him. Man is not a blank slate and does not enter into a blank world to create himself or to create a world of his liking. Part of man's identity is tied up with his biological and historical inheritance. Another core principle to traditionalism would be anti-egalitarianism. There is no equality in the natural world among humans. There exists hierarchy and natural distinctions between all creatures. It is only through hierarchy and distinctiveness that true diversity, true pluralism is possible. The great facade of modernistic egalitarianism is the assertion that the homogeneous melting pot equates to diversity. On the contrary, it destroys diversity. Another principle of traditionalism is male headship. As affirmed in the Bible and the biological reality of humans, man has headship and leadership in the household. Woman's role is as a helper and a companion, and her primary domain is in child rearing and child education. Marriage, however, is an indissoluble sacred bond. Anybody who is Catholic or Orthodox would know this through the sacrament of marriage. The metaphysic of masculinity is in initiation. The metaphysic of femininity is in receptivity. When initiation and receptivity are united as one, life is found and propagated as according to the first commandment of God, to be fruitful and multiply. There is also a natural distinctiveness to the composition of organic society. The family is the original cell of social life. All civilization, according to traditionalism, is rooted in the cornerstone of the family. There exists in society a natural leadership class, which includes the natural aristocracy, religious leadership, and economic innovators and inventors. The common man, though more numerous than the leadership class, has its role to play in the propagation and firmness of society through commitment to family and community life. The proper relationality of society is in the integrated web of relations where all forces of society aim to the common good and metaphysical core which drives the vitality of society forward. Without a metaphysical core for society to aim at, there cannot be a common good, and society will inevitably collapse into a hollow relativism, a return to the book of Judges, for instance, where everybody does what is right in their own eyes. Another core tenet to traditionalism is nationalism. Nationalism is not evil, it is natural. It is to be expected given man's social, communitarian, and historical nature. Patriotism and nationalism are not necessarily synonymous with state nationalism, which places worship and subservience to the state as greater to kith, kin, and community. Continuing with political principles, traditionalism would support subsidiarity. The best form of political governance and order is decentralized. Political life should focus on and at the local level rather than the bureaucratic, centralized, and federal level. Another principle to traditionalism is the affirmation of the organic or biological reality of science as opposed to the dry, sterile, and mechanical, i.e., mechanistic view of science, which implicitly promotes a blank slate and robotic understanding of humanity, which is necessary for modernity's egalitarian anthropology. To summarize the long history of the philosophy of science, there are basically two schools of philosophy of science. One is organic and biological, the other is mechanical and materialistic. The traditionalists would all affirm the organic and biological reality of science as opposed to that mechanical and materialistic philosophy of science. And lastly, identity and culture matter to people, and part of the role and nature of the political is to safeguard identity and culture. We hear all the time how identity is important to minority or voices or people on the periphery. Well, this would, of course, be true to the majority culture and the majority identity. Identity matters to all people. That would include Europeans and those who are part of the European diaspora. Politics is more than mere economics in its liberal capitalist or socialist form. The political includes culture, history, identity, heritage, religion, and the political ought to reflect and embody those elements of its core constitutive citizenry. So that is a summary introduction to traditionalism. When you study the history of philosophy and political philosophy, these would be the basic principles and core tenets of traditionalist philosophy that you would find common to all the traditionalists. Thank you.